can start now. It's 4 o'clock. Very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our SPC2021 Roadshow. And today is the last of our series. So we are in the very last session of our one-on-one interviews with our corporate sponsors. Corporate sponsors have contributed innovation opportunities for this year's SmartPod Challenge. My name is Jessica and I'll be your moderator for today. So in case you're not familiar with SmartPod Challenge, it is the flagship event of SPC2021, which is co-organized by MPA and NUS Enterprise and also supported by TNB Ventures. So this year we have 17 innovation opportunities from 21 different corporates, and we'll be speaking to one of them today, and that's Godall from Gard. So he's with us online today. Hello, Godall.
Hi, Jessica. Good afternoon.
Hi, good to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Good to meet you too.
I'm just going to start straight away with your problem statement, which is on common incident data collection across P&I clubs. So if you don't mind, maybe can you just start off with introducing yourself and what you do, and then going into Gard.
Sure, Jessica. Thanks again. And let me also say a quick welcome to all of you who are joining us. My name is Kunal Pathak. I work as a loss prevention manager for Gard Singapore. And we have two loss prevention people in Gard in Asia, myself and my colleague Siddharth Mahajan. The presentation that I will deliver in very shortly on the problem statement is jointly prepared by myself and my colleague Siddharth. Right? Who am I? I'm an ex-mariner. I've been at sea for about 11 years on different types of ships. I moved to Singapore in 2012, and I have been with Gard since 2015. So this is my 6th year, just completed it, in fact. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Gard and the problem statement. But let me just share my screen just to give you a background about how this dialogue about this common incident data collection system came about. So Jessica, just let me know once you're able to see my screen. Not very familiar with Zoom, so just bear with me for a minute. I'll get there. So I suppose you can see yourself now?
Not quite. We can see your desktop, not yet the PowerPoint.
Okay, you will see it now.
Ah, yes, perfect.
Okay, excellent. So just a quick background about how did this discussion start. We were invited for a workshop, which was, I think, jointly hosted by MPA and the Norwegian Business Association in Singapore. Being a Norwegian company, which Gard is, we get invited to all these workshops. And the purpose of this workshop was to discuss the industry problem statements and explore what kind of solutions are we looking for. So when I was talking to my other counterparts in the workshop, we started discussing this big issue of a common data collection system across the P&I club industry. And I'll tell you about what exactly the P&I club, those of you who are not familiar with it. But the problem that we discussed was that we are not able to, first of all, collect the right data, and secondly, make sense out of it. And I'll cover all this in a bit of detail. Let me just tell you, first of all, what is Gard? Gard, those of you may know Gard as a P&I or a hull machinery insurer. We also provide insurance for loss of hire, or we call it income. The key difference between P&I and hull machinery, P&I is your liability insurance. So for example, those of you who own a car, if you're driving a car, you crash into another car, the third-party damage that you would cause is covered by P&I, which is your liability, right? And it covers things like pollution, crew claims, cargo claims, environmental claims, which comes under pollution, of course, and of course, collision claims also. And then we also cover for fines and everything else. All this falls under the ambit of P&I. Hull machinery is the pure asset insurance. So basically, this is to do with any sort of loss or damage to the property, which is the ship, the hull of the ship, or the machine of the ship. And then thirdly, income is that in case you have a H&M incident or hull machinery incident, your vessel will be off hire for a period of time till the time the repairs are completed, right? And then we provide insurance for the loss of earnings for that duration of time. So we can talk a little bit more about the details, but for the purpose of the presentation, I think all this, what I'm showing right now is good enough for you to understand where I am coming from. What do we do in loss prevention? Now that's an important part because this will start connecting to my grievance, let me put it that way, my grievance about the lack of data collection. We get to see a lot of incidents, big and small. Photographs that you're looking at here are the incidents that made it to the headlines. But I'll tell you this one secret, and most mariners will probably understand or agree with this statement, is that all of these incidents that have happened and that have come in the news, they are nothing but an extension of a pattern that we all have experienced when we were at sea, all have experienced during our time ashore as well. So when we look at an incident, we feel that everything that has happened before this incident has been rather consistent with a number of other smaller incidents that we've seen. But this incident made it to the headlines, whereas the others did not. And we have a hunch about the pattern, but we can't put a finger to the pattern. We can't say this is the pattern that has caused it. And that's where we need data to be able to support our hunch, so to speak. Right? In Gard, what we do is we learn from these incidents and then we share those lessons from those incidents, but those lessons have a limited application. I would not say if I share all the lessons from a Vakashio, which you see on the top left, I wouldn't say those same lessons would be helpful enough for a ship manager or a ship owner to avoid any such incidents in the future. But they may get a few ideas here and there, right? And that's what brings me to my problem statement. And this is how I had explained the problem statement during the workshop. There are 13 PNI clubs altogether. And you can see I've put the names here. Let me just move the screen here. Yeah. So the 13 PNI clubs: Britannia, Gard, West of England, Steamship, UK PNI clubs, Standard, School, and North. And then there are, of course, the others. But between the 13 PNI clubs, we cover almost 90% of the world fleet in gross tons, right? And I don't mean to brag, but yes, Gard is the largest PNI club in the world. We have close to 19% of the market share. Is that good enough for making sense of the data? I don't know. Because if you're talking about just 19% of the market share of the entire world fleet, we are still missing close to 80% of the world fleet, which is not even being analyzed. So you see that diversity, although it is important that you have number of PNI clubs, it's good for the ship owners because they get to choose what they want. They get to pick up a PNI club which is more suitable for their need. But when it comes to usability of the data coming from incidents, it is limited only to that particular PNI club. And none of these PNI clubs have a standardized way of data collection. Gard uses its own platform. So does Britannia. So does Gold and Standard. They all have a very different and unique way of collecting data. And this non-standardization is a huge challenge because even when we want to work together, we realize that either the granularity of the data is not very well defined, or the terms that we're using are not very well defined. So an incident that would be, let's say, fed into the system as missing seafarer could be fed as a completely different code in a different PNI club, and that becomes a challenge, especially when we want to actually collaborate together. We realize that it is difficult. There's a lot of manual work that is required to be able to collaborate the data, and it also extends into the analysis of the data. So it leads to misleading claims analysis and inadequate loss prevention insight. So if the problem that we encounter in loss prevention is that we want to help our members, our ship owners, in identifying certain patterns. But whenever we are able to develop a pattern through Guard, we are restricted to that 18.7% market share number. We are not representative of the entire industry. And that is quite challenging. And I think as a ship owner, you should ask for more. You deserve better than that. You deserve better than 18.7%. You deserve 90% of the data to be able to make sense out of the patterns. And that's the kind of a support I hope that we'll be able to develop with this platform. What are the challenges? Ideology. That's the first big challenge. PNI clubs are traditional. Most of them are over 100 years old. They have the set pattern of working, right? And obviously, they have different ideologies when it comes to servicing their members. The ideology that Guard focuses on may not be similar to any other PNI club, for example, Britannia or Standard Club. And in loss prevention, we do interact with our counterparts in other PNI clubs, and we can tell the ideology is completely different. So that's one thing that leads to lack of coherence and what we've written here, not driven by the same set of principles. The second challenge is availability of resources. Now I'm talking about physical resources here. Fortunately, Gard is large enough that it has its own internal IT support. But that is not the case with smaller PNI clubs. They still depend on external service providers to be able to develop certain IT platforms, even for their own internal data systems. And second is the manpower, where you need the right amount of resources and the right competence in those resources. So we have a lot of mariners in Guard, and a number of other PNI clubs also have mariners, and that manpower is very important, especially when you are developing a system of data collection. Because if it is done, if the data collection or data platform is developed by a pure IT person, he or she would not know what questions are they looking for or what answers do they want from the system. And if you don't have clarity on the answers that you want from the system, you will develop something which is very vague, which will make no sense whatsoever practically. So you need to have the right kind of a manpower, both in terms of numbers and in terms of competence. Second, the third challenge here is inconsistency in the data entry, which we have talked about a lot in Guard and also with other PNI clubs. It is a lot of manual work. When I explain you what that means, it means that when you have an incident, for example, the navigation incident, the incident is reported to the ship manager ashore. The ship manager connects with the insurance company or to the broker. And through that broker, we will get, or directly from the manager, we will get all the information related to the incident. And if it's a navigation incident, we'll get some basic information like the date of the incident, the time of the incident, the place of incident, and what actions have the owners taken. Now, the information that a claims handler would get, it is really up to him how he or she makes sense out of the information, because that's the information that will be fed into the system. So we have certain claims codes. Some of them are fixed, some of them are free text, and that's the same case. The case is consistent across all PNI clubs. Um, okay, the claim codes which are fixed, they are easily analyzed later on. But the claims codes which are basically free text are very difficult to analyze, because each and every individual has his or her own way of explaining an incident, right? And that's what starts affecting the quality of what comes out on the other end. And remember, I mentioned it's very important to know the questions that you want to ask, because you need to be clear about the answers that you expect to receive. If you don't have that clarity, your platforms are absolutely worthless, especially from a loss prevention point of view, right? And then the third part that I talk about inconsistency is granularity. When I talk about granularity, what I mean is, if you have an incident, you will get some initial information, but then you need to go a few layers deeper to understand how that incident happened. We're not talking about root cause analysis. Please don't get me wrong, because the moment I say granularity, the next assumption that a lot of people say is root cause analysis. We're not talking about root cause analysis. I just want to know as much information about an incident so that we can recreate the environment that has led to the incident. Remember, I was talking about the patterns here. If you don't have the granularity, we can't develop patterns whatsoever. And I think ship owners deserve to know the patterns, because they are paying for insurance, not just for the PNI clubs to cover them, but also to advise them on how they can stop the reoccurrence. And fourth point here is data ownership.
Just to jump in here, Kunal, before we go into the data ownership, could you share a little bit more about the kinds of data that is needed to be collected for the various kinds of incidents? Because I can see that there are so many different types of incidents, right? Are you referring to incident data relating to the ship, like the speed of which the vessel was traveling at, the weight of the cargo on board, the arrangement of the cargo, or is it also external factors like perhaps the wind speed and the tidal waves at that time? So yeah, what in terms of the data, what kind of data are we looking at?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, Jessica, and I'm sure a lot of others would also have it. So let me give you an example of a simple thing like a cargo claim, right? Now, when you get a cargo claim of contamination, I'm talking about dry bulk cargo. Let's say, take for example, soybean. Now, when you get a claim like soybean cargo claim of contamination, what information do you need? You need to understand how often was the cargo ventilated on board the vessel? When was it loaded? What was the moisture content of the cargo at the time of loading? Do you have any certificates around that? Then comes to the next level. We also want to know the environmental factors. When I say environmental factors, it's very important to understand what kind of rainfall that area has experienced prior to loading. Now, this kind of information is already there, Jessica. I'm not making this up because a lot of times we get pre-warnings whenever an area experiences heavy rainfall,
Mm,
that the harvest that you will get over the next 2 to 3 months is likely to have higher moisture content than what they declare in the certificates. And we get
mm,
these pre-warnings from different sources. But this data never really makes into a system or any system for that matter. Right. So this is a cargo example. And you mentioned navigation incident. Navigation incident, if I want to know now, there's a general concept that more experienced a mariner is, the more likely the vessel will be incident free, especially when
mm,
talk about navigation incident. And SIRE requirement is that a captain and a chief officer or the top four management officers need to have certain years of experience. That's
mm,
great, wonderful. You need to have experienced mariners. I'm not denying that fact, but I'm also questioning, how about the junior officers? How experienced are they? A lot of times we experience that the captain is very senior, very experienced. He's in his late 50s, and the junior officer who was working with the captain during pilotage was just the first year at sea, or not first year at sea, but the first year in his rank, or maybe the second year in his rank, and was very hesitant to talk to the captain. We don't
mm.
get that data. We don't understand what is the gradient difference between the
Yeah.
experience of the captain versus the experience of the junior officers. and
Yes.
and then we can't then question whether it is the experience of that one individual, or do we want to look at the collective experience of all the people so that they actually feel part of the team on the
Mm,
bridge.
mm. So yeah, there's so many different possible variables, right, that could affect all these different kinds of incidents. Some of
Yes.
which is data that the vessel, the ship ownership manager will probably already have on hand, like for example, the experience of the crew. Some of which, or rather, would there be data that they don't already have? So I think where I'm coming from also is that for a solution provider that's thinking of how to collect the data, are there standard already, it's already keyed in and there's already forms available that they can just automatically extract versus requiring new manual input versus maybe
Yes.
third-party things, right? Which is like you said, weather, rainfall, these are again even more third-party related information. Yeah.
Uh,
So to what extent is it already there? To what extent is it something we need to input fresh from
yes.
when it happens?
So a lot of the environmental factors, data around the environmental factors is already there, Jessica. For
Mm,
example, if you want to know the wind speed, the wave height, the other navigation parameters, you can
mm,
actually get that information from various AIS data service providers.
mm,
We also use some bit of that, and some of it is very insightful. You can also get information on the maneuvering of the vessel through the VDR data of the vessel or the EGDIS history playback. So some bit of the information is already there,
mm,
but there I'm talking about the other factors which we normally don't get in the incident, and
mm,
we normally don't even collect. A lot of times we don't even collect the information which is already there because, um, like I said, if you don't know the answers that you're looking for, or if you don't haven't thought about the questions, you may not be able to develop the platform that that is intended for a desired purpose.
yeah, I see. So yeah, the whole design of this and what kind of variables to collect is something that will both require technical expertise, but also really the in-depth industry experience, right? To
Yes.
know what could
it,
affect
it
different.
needs to be a marriage between the two, the technical, like you said, the technical expertise or the IT expertise
Yeah.
versus the industry experience, the relevant operational experience. Very, very
Yeah.
important.
Yes, okay.
Um,
And the intention of all this is so that, as you mentioned, so that you can better predict and forecast when there are certain cases where an incident could be upcoming, as well as also to help you with the claims process, is it?
yes. So in terms of claims process, I don't think it is going to help. Quite honestly, I feel
Mm,
that this system should primarily focus on loss prevention or preventing the losses. You can
sure.
only prevent or predict losses if you are able to understand a certain pattern,
Mm, mm,
and you are able to develop a system in which you have an understanding, a common understanding of those patterns with your seafarers, with your managers, and even with your charters for that matter, especially when it comes to cargo claims. So it is, if as a starting point, Jessica, even if we can just develop a handful of patterns, it will start to make a big difference.
mm.
And we have done a bit of this pattern recognition in Gard using our analytics team, where we use AIS-based information to develop certain trends. And those patterns are insightful, to say the least, because it tells a ship owner, for example, that if your vessels are calling ports every second day or every third day, or let's say a certain number in a month, your vessel is 20% more likely to have a navigation incident versus others which are calling less ports in a year or in a month, right? And it draws a direct link using data. So this is not the feelings of a navigator who's working in a loss prevention department. This is actually coming from data-driven insights that your vessel is considered a high risk primarily because of the trade pattern that it follows.
Yeah,
Right?
and I think that's really powerful, right? To have such
It
data-driven
is.
yeah, to help to drive certain changes in perhaps how you might, operate and to make it safer and more
Yes.
efficient.
And
Yeah.
we've also come up with insights like if your vessels are departing port between a certain hour and a certain hour every time, it is likely to have an impact on both the fatigue level of the crew as well as their safety performance on board the vessel. This is
Yeah.
again coming from, so these are the kind of insights I think that ship owners can actually use and
Yeah.
implement in their own strategic management.
Yeah, that's really important. So for right now, just to again understand the current state of data collection, is it only when an incident happens and then it's mandatory for them to submit the data to you? Or is this something, is that the only way that data is collected? Or when you're thinking of this, is it also kind of like when they are near misses, you also hope that they would, key in the data so that you know what to avoid and it helps you to build up your database and your trends?
Yeah, so near misses, Jessica, there's no obligation on the owners to report near misses. Some owners do it, but normally they record the near misses in their own systems. We get reported all the actual incidents, which are above a certain amount of money, which we call deductibles. And this reporting, again, there's no mandatory requirement for them to report all the data fields that we're looking at. So we need, of course, some basic information about, let's say, if it's a cargo claim, the cargo type, quantity, and so on and so forth to settle the claim. We need that basic information to settle the claim, not so much to prevent a reoccurrence. Now, prevention of reoccurrence, we hope to get that from the reports that surveyors give us, but most of the reports are, again, more towards settlement of the claim rather than avoiding reoccurrence.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I interrupted your presentation. Please keep going.
Sure. Okay, but that's good questions you've asked, Jessica. Thanks for asking them.
No, thank
So
you.
let me see what let's say this is again exploratory. In fact, just before this session today. By the way, this presentation slide, what you guys are looking at, was prepared just 20 minutes before the session. All thanks to my colleague Siddharth Mahajan, who helped me out with this. And Siddharth and I were talking about it. What is it that we want?
Yeah.
Right? What is an ideal platform? What should it look like? First of all, we want to have a system of digital checklists, which reduces the amount of time a person would need to fill up all the different claims codes or incident codes, for example. And it should have objective data collection. We don't want to have feelings about was this a high risk operation or a low risk operation or whatever that is. We want to know just plain simple facts around an incident. And best is done from a digital checklist. When I say digital checklist, it should also have a system of analyzing the information as it comes in. Right? We're not interested in individuals. We are not interested in particular ship managers. We are not interested in the owners. There's no naming and shaming here, which is very, very important. Anonymity of the information. And the reason I'm saying anonymity is because it connects to my fourth point here, capable of delivering data-driven loss prevention insights. The data should be able to give us patterns which are relevant for loss prevention purpose, not for underwriting, because that's a concern a lot of ship owners would have that, okay, if we give you our data, you may start increasing or decreasing or, start interfering with our insurance premiums. We're not so much interested in changing insurance premium because there's a separate tool that every insurer uses to calculate insurance premium, right? There are certain risk factors that they look at, but the purpose of this particular platform is purely to ensure that we are able to get loss prevention insights, to identify the patterns and trends before things happen, and to be able to give them insights. And then third point that I want to make is it needs to have common data points across all the PNI clubs. So that's the only way we will be able to make sense out of this 90% fleet that all the PNI clubs insure, right? That they have common data points, they have a unified system of analyzing the data and ensuring that we don't breach any GDPR requirements or compromise on the anonymity of the ship owners who would wish to keep it that way.
So that a level of cybersecurity, those have to be the basic levels as well.
Absolutely, yes. So we in fact we're not even interested in the the particular vessel on which this incident happened. We want to know a segment. So, for example, if you're looking at the container vessel in the background here, container vessel of this, all of the container vessel this size, what exactly are the underlying patterns for, let's say, cargo fires? What are the underlying patterns for navigation incidents when they are calling ports? Is it to do with the speed? Is it to do with the main engine power? Is it to do with the rudder, the rate of turn? What exactly are the underlying patterns? That's what we're looking at as a start. Right. So that's what we're looking at. For startups, what support can they expect?
Just to jump in again, sorry. So on that idea of common data points and being able to, and your vision is for it to be used across the board for different organizations, right? I guess there's the question then of stakeholders, just to help our startups who are listening in to better understand who are the stakeholders who need to be brought on board and to get the buy-in that's needed for this solution to be a success.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jessica. You're actually asking very useful questions. The stakeholders that we've thought about, of course, first are the ship owners, the ship managers. We also need the buy-in from the class societies and flag states, because all the incidents are reported through a common database through the flag states. We need a buy-in from them. And of course, then come the insurers. We need that buy-in from that segment of the stakeholders as well, to be able to, first of all, adopt this platform and use these insights for the benefit of the members. But those are the main stakeholders I can think of. It's very likely that as we go along, there could be others that we may not have thought of and could be actually very useful here. But as a first step, I think it's the stakeholders that I've mentioned here.
Right. And what would you say is the level of readiness of these stakeholders to utilize such a solution?
Very low.
Just low. Okay. Yeah.
Very low.
Right.
Again, it all boils down to the anonymity. Right. There is a constant. It's a perception. Let me put it that way. It's a perception that if the ship owners lose their data, they will their commercial viability of their vessels will be compromised. Right. Unless it becomes a part of the vetting requirement. Because the vetting bodies, and I can say one vetting body which collects a lot of data on ship owners is RightShip. Right? And they get reported all types of data that they need to be able to give a risk rating to the vessel. Now, risk rating is directly related to the commercial viability of the vessels. And that's where the ship owners are more open to sharing data.
Okay. So right now, it seems like the stakeholders' interest level may be a little bit low, but with a strong solution that shows that there's anonymity and there's data protection and privacy, it could help to nudge them along, I suppose. And also with, I guess, the general trend of people realizing that, data really is a minefield of potential insight that can help to enhance operations, save costs. Hopefully, we can move toward that kind of a solution of data sharing, right?
Yeah. I feel it is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Should we be able to explain them the benefits before we ask them their contribution? Because if we can show them the benefits, which means that we need to have some level of buy-in from their side. So goes back to the same point of them cooperating or believing in the anonymity of the system. That will help them in recognizing patterns and reducing the losses and improving the risk rating overall. That's the end game, because improving the risk rating of a vessel makes a huge difference in the commercial viability of the owners. The second thing that is coming into the picture now, of course, is the carbon footprint, but that's a separate matter. If we can focus on just the risk, the operational risk rating of the vessels, I think they will definitely start to see the benefits going forward.
So I hope that also answers Duncan's question that's in the chat group. Yeah, thanks Duncan for your question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Keep going, please. I think you got another slide. Yeah.
I think this is my final slide. What can you expect from us now? Like I said before, at the moment, this is a discussion that I had during this workshop with our MPA and the Norwegian Business Association in Singapore. We don't have a lot of buy-in from other P&I clubs at this point in time. We have not discussed this at IT level. I have discussed this internally in Gard through the head of the loss prevention in Gard and also with our industry liaison person. So what you can expect at this point in time is certainly technical inputs, both from myself and my colleague Siddharth here. We're also in touch with a number of other mariners. We'll be very happy to give startups the technical inputs that they would require, let's say, to design the platform in the first place. What kind of a design are you looking at? Or what kind of questions are you looking at? And this technical support will remain with them all the way to the point of design, to the time of collection, and then also to the time of analysis of the data. So we'll be able to, whatever analysis that you get, whether you run a regression analysis or whichever type, you will be able to get the practical inputs from us, whether a certain correlation makes sense or is it completely coincidental. So that kind of a support you can get in the beginning. We can also give you advice on existing data providers, where you can just go and buy data. You can actually purchase data through them in a scrambled format, which means that you don't really need to have buy-in from a number of other stakeholders. You can get some base level information already, which is off the shelf. And so we can help you. You can help the startups with that, and also give an understanding of what are the other products in the market which are providing similar services. All right, so I think that's what I have for now. I'm not sure how am I doing on the time.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's great. We were slightly overrun on time, but I think that's a really good sharing. Thank you. And also what you just said also helps to answer Anand's question in the Q&A, where he's asking about who owns the data that we want collected. And what Kunal mentioned is that some of it is open source available data that's already out there, and some of it belongs to the ship owners, right? So I think also really appreciate the support that you have mentioned that you'll be providing for startups. And actually, I also just want to add that I think this is the first time we have a marine insurance company participating in SmartPort Challenge. So that's also really quite exciting for us, and we're really thankful to have you guys on board. Typically, we always have the more known sectors, right? The port, the shipping services. But now the marine services is also another very important part of our innovation or maritime ecosystem. And I think, as you mentioned earlier in your presentation, Singapore has one of the highest concentration of marine insurers here. So again, appreciate your support and your sharing. Thank you for sharing with us this really interesting problem statement we have today. And for startups that are listening in, we also want to really encourage you to put forth your proposals, and we will consider them, and you get a chance to work with Gard and to tap on their expertise in this. Before we end, I might want to show the video, even though we are slightly 5 minutes overrun, but we have an animation video that summarizes it well, and we hope that that can be a good closing for us. So let's put on the video in just a bit. There we go. Okay, yeah, we got the so that's showing you guys what the other challenge statements are. So that you know that you can actually go to PSM on YouTube to find all the different challenge statements. And they're from the different sectors that we have, covering all kinds of things from robotics to other kinds of data collection to crew health and safety. And there we go. This is the one we're looking at today, P&I clubs. Just a minute while it's loading. Give it a little while. Meanwhile, any last questions? You get a chance to type it into the chat. This is a built-in, deliberate, some buffer time for you to think of the questions. Okay, I think if it's not loading, we can not to worry. Okay, we just got it on.
Like car owners, ship owners are subject to claims from third parties. This could include damage to port facilities, other vessels, cargo, the environment, or personnel-related injuries. Protection and indemnity clubs provide insurance to ship owners against such liabilities and expenses. Every time an incident happens, each P&I club conducts its own data gathering, survey, and analysis in order to assess and process the claims. Reports from past experiences involving groundings, collisions, cargo damage, etc., can offer valuable insights for implementing measures to prevent reoccurrence of such losses. However, there is no consistent system for sharing post-incident data across the industry for the P&I clubs. Each P&I club relies on its own process for gathering and analyzing data, which limits the data to the relative market share of the particular P&I club. Gard is looking for a solution that offers a common and neutral platform to standardize the data collection process and allow aggregate data to be shared by all stakeholders for better visibility and more effective approach towards loss prevention.
Thank you for the video, Priscilla. And yeah, again, Gard, again, Kunal, Siddharth, thank you so much for your time. I don't know whether, Kunal, you have any last words you want to say to our audience before I wrap up?
No, Jessica, I just want to say a quick thank you to all of you. You guys are doing a good job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. And also, yeah, so I think we can just go on to that last slide that we have. And that is to remind you that our deadline is on the 10th of August. For those who are listening in, you have a few more days to polish up your proposals and to submit them before 2359 on the 10th of August. And if you want to find out more about any of the innovation opportunities, please go to that link as well to our Pier 71 website. If you want to look at any more awesome animations, you can also search Pier 71 on YouTube to find the list and the various videos that we have. And this is the last session once again. But really, thank you guys for being online, and please continue to follow us on LinkedIn and our social media to get updates. And for startups that get through to the next stage, you will be able to participate in the Accelerate program to get more and more interactions with maritime corporates to validate your solutions, to learn more about this exciting sector. And you also stand a chance to have the NPA grant to pilot your project of up to $50,000, and also the support of industry experts like Kunal and Siddharth. So again, thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon, and yeah, thank you for your time. Bye.